If you struggle with joining group conversations, here are some things you could try. Hi, I'm Day. I'm a social skills coach, and I give advice on how to navigate social situations and avoid social awkwardness. First things first, I want to tell you, don't feel bad about yourself. Don't. It happens all the time. Sometimes group conversations, they can be messy because it's multiple people, right? So it's not as smooth of back and forth as if it was just two people. And sometimes two people or three people or whatever are so engrossed in a conversation that they either don't pick up on people trying to join, and some people just don't want others to join and will passive aggressively edge people out. No matter what it is, interruptions are going to happen, talking over people is going to happen. So don't automatically shut down and feel bad like it's something about you if you're having trouble joining a group conversation and being in sync with the other people. One thing you could do is act as if you're already in the conversation with nonverbal cues. Nodding, like, oh yeah, laughing at their jokes if you find them funny. The thing is, what happens with group conversations is people in the conversation are looking at each other and paying attention to each other's body language and what they're saying. It's almost as if in their minds, like the other people around them almost don't exist in the sense. And what I mean by that is, it may not be that they don't care to let you participate in the conversation. It's just that if you're not reacting with nonverbal cues that show you're listening, like nodding, then in their mind subconsciously, you are not part of the conversation. So when you go and try and jump in verbally and try to say something, they're not accounting for you saying something, for you being a part of this. So that might be a reason why when you try to talk, somebody talks at the same time and you can't get in. It's like double dutch where you keep hitting the rope and you can't jump in between. What happens if people see you nodding along is if they're open and receptive to you, someone might turn to you and start like making eye contact with you as well as the other people in the group. Like, you know how when people are talking in a group, they make eye contact with each person. If they see you listening and giving cues that you want to join, someone might start doing that with you too. You also want to start joining with uh-huhs and oh yeah, because you want to keep the things you're saying short. This is not like a hard and fast rule, but generally, again, like people are not accounting for you being part of the conversation. So you chiming in with little short things will clue them in. It's kind of like when you're driving, you use your turn signal before changing lanes. You don't just jump in front of a car. When you do speak, be careful that you're not doing things that are going to lose the group's attention. For example, don't talk too long. Going back to what I was saying before, you want to keep what you're saying short in a group conversation. General rule, about 1 to 2 sentences. The reason why is because in a group conversation, you don't have as much time to think as you would in a one-on-one conversation. The fact is, in a group, everyone is kind of competing for each other's attention. That's just the way it is. And so if you try and go on a monologue and like you kind of have a ton of things to say, what could happen is somebody's attention could wander and they could cut you off. And then you feel like you're edged out of the conversation. So generally speak in sentences, not paragraphs. Also, when you're speaking, you want to make sure that you're matching the vibe of the group. So if everybody else is like loud and rowdy and having a good time, and so they're like, ha ha ha, hey, yeah, yeah, and then you're just kind of like, oh, such and such and such and such and such and such. What's going to happen is you're going to lose the attention of the group and someone is going to jump in and cut you right off. Not because they're being malicious, but just because you're not really matching the vibe. Right now, everyone's kind of being loud and silly. So something somber isn't going to hold their attention at that time. The opposite is true too, though. If everyone's kind of somber and serious, like they're discussing a serious matter, and then you go in and like crack a joke and you're kind of being loud and rowdy, people are going to be looking at you like, what the hell is your problem? Read the room. You don't want that either. If you do that, you might get a response where everyone like is silent and there's crickets, and then they continue on like you weren't talking. Not good. Another thing, when you're speaking, make sure that you're loud enough. Make sure you're not so quiet that people can't hear you or that you're not commanding attention. And also understand that like being interrupted or having some people talking over each other in a group is normal. You don't want to be talking the entire time someone else is talking, but it's kind of like, again, competing for the group's attention. There's going to be a little bit of a verbal wrestling, so to speak, like to have the floor. So one thing you could do, if like, let's say you hear something, you chime in and someone else kind of chimes in at the same time, one thing you can do, you can raise your voice slightly louder and continue talking. Now, you want to be careful with this because you don't want to go overboard. Don't overdo it and like literally start shouting over top of people, like you're deliberately trying to shout over them, because then people will be looking at you like, what is your problem? Why are you yelling? But just raising your voice just a little bit louder, like it's a subconscious cue that you're talking now and you have the floor. And also, just on a practical level, people will hear you first and probably tune into you first. Especially if it's a relatively new group of people you're around, you want to make sure that you talk early and often. So be one of the first ones to talk. Now, it doesn't mean force yourself into the conversation in a way that's not natural and talk just to talk, but you want to try to be one of the first ones, just because it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about people mentally including you in the conversation. Like, if you've been sitting in the sidelines this whole time, kind of looking away, kind of not showing much interest or investment in the group, then people will get used to you being left out, and in their minds, they won't view you as being part of the conversation. But if you're talking early and often, people will subconsciously make a mental note like, oh, okay, she's in this too. And so it'll be easier for you to integrate in the conversation if you've already been in it from the start. If you're in the conversation and someone talks over you, just continue talking as if they weren't saying anything. And like I said before, you can raise your voice just a little bit louder since it's a group, but this sends a subconscious signal that you're going to keep speaking. You have the floor now, and you will not be interrupted. You don't want to do this in a domineering way. Again, don't go shouting over people, but that is one thing. Practice not letting yourself be interrupted. It's a lot easier said than done, but practice makes perfect, because communication is all about nonverbal cues as well. And last, accept that sometimes you're just not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. Sometimes it's too many people talking, too many cooks in the kitchen. And sometimes other people, like, they're just so in sync with each other. And like I said before, engrossed in the conversation that they kind of tune the rest of the world out. It's not personal. Also, sometimes it is, which that's a different case, but if people are being passive aggressive about it, that's on them. Either way, the point is, if you tried a couple of times and you're not able to get a word in edgewise, just bow out and fall back. But again, don't take it to mean that there's anything wrong with you.